Good morning from beautiful, sunshiny Mexico. I'm down here kind of south of Guadalajara on vacation with my partner and his parents. Oh, we're staying with his parents. They live here. And the other day, I noticed that I had been scrolling Instagram for way too long. And I started to get that sort of squiggle brained feeling where I couldn't relax and I just felt like a sort of low grade anxiety. So I went and I walked around their complex, which is really nice. It's so lovely. They have a tennis court and a soccer field and a beautiful swimming pool. And I was walking around and enjoying all of the tropical plants. There's so many beautiful bougainvilleas everywhere and hibiscus, and it's just really, truly gorgeous. And I was struck with this really overwhelming feeling of gratitude for nature and for the fact that I get to be here enjoying this downtime. Rest is so, so important. And we're going to talk about that later in the episode. But also, while I was on this walk, I had a little bit of an epiphany.
Welcome to Your Passaggi Professor, a podcast for singers who want tools to bridge the gap between the hard skills we learn in music school and the soft skills we need to live focused, intentional lives. I'm your host, Sarah Neely, voice professor, director, and certified life coach. Each week, we'll talk about mindset, emotional regulation, boundaries, and more so you can navigate the passaggi of your life both on and off the stage.
Something struck me while I was walking. I had seen an Instagram post that was like a snippet of Brene Brown's podcast with Adam Grant, and they were talking about AI and how the problem with using AI to write is that it removes the step of thinking and how important that is. And I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, especially after the discussion we had on last week's podcast episode. And because I wrote in my newsletter this past week, a few days ago, about how I always keep coming back to this idea of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So I had this realization that I have this blind spot in using AI to help me speed up to get my podcast script done instead of going slow and smooth to then speed up and build that skill. And I am kind of torn about it because honestly, in some ways, I do feel like I think. I script my episodes by brain dumping and then organizing the thoughts. And I do edit a lot of the draft that AI gives me, so I'm not just taking it at face value, I am thinking it through. But this week I'm trying something different. I brain dumped my ideas by handwriting them, and I'm just kind of freewheeling this recording, and I will organize some in the editing process, I think. But you'll have to let me know if this less scripted episode resonates with you or if it feels a little bit too disconnected, discombobulated. But also, this brings me to this idea that because I really have never liked writing and organizing my thoughts and all of those things, that thinking aspect of it has always been very tedious to me. It doesn't come easily. And the problem with that is that resistance that I felt has kept me from writing at all or doing this podcast at all. It took me years to start the podcast when I had been feeling an urge or a desire to do it for many years. And so the fact that AI has become a tool that has helped me to stop overthinking and to just do, I think has value, especially as a mindset and a motivational thing. Often B minus work that's done is going to take you further than laboring over something to make it perfect, but not ever finishing it. Or if that keeps you from even starting at all, then that's a problem. I'd rather it be B minus and done, you know? But where's the line, right? And so that's something I have to decide for myself. And I'm curious about your feedback as well, because at the end of the day, I want this podcast to be helpful. And so I want to know what works for you. So let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. And it's quite possible that this is not the solution, that maybe I need to actually spend more time scripting myself even without AI, but I'm going about this in a trial and error way. This process for me needs to be relatively quick and easy. Otherwise, the resistance makes it not worth doing. So we will grow and adapt along the way, but I am making a conscious effort to use less AI in this process and see how that goes for me. Trial and error is, in some ways, like the number one tool of life. Learning how to grow and move forward through something instead of getting stuck in overthinking and overanalyzing. That is the least helpful thing you can do. Which also kind of brought up this idea for me of a concept that I learned a few years ago about always approaching anything that you're learning with a beginner's mindset. And I think that's super important, especially as a singer, when it comes to technique and expression and your acting and the score study, the character study kinds of work that we do when we are building new roles. Because if we go into a situation with what we've already learned, coloring everything that we're taking in, we're very often willing to be like, oh, well, I already know that. And you just bypass an opportunity to really look at something from a new angle with a new lens. And your biases and your assumptions creep in and it starts to color everything. But if you can come into a situation with that beginner's mindset, it can transform your ability to learn something new in a deeper, broader way that I think has so much value. That's my hot mindset tip for the day. Now let's circle back really quick to that idea of rest that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I struggle to use labels like type A and type B because there are times where I feel like I'm clearly both. But I think in this situation, I would lean more type A, where I'm kind of a more proactive, a little bit more organized, a little bit more prone to feeling stressed and overwhelmed. But I am truly learning this year the value of rest and taking the time to rest. I have started earlier this year, or maybe even in the last fall, I'm not sure. I started to do this as part of my scheduling for the week. I plan into my day an hour of slow start, is what I call it, which is inspired by Jules Acree's Slow Brew newsletter. I just really love it. It has such a cozy vibe. But I decided for myself that I have to plan in some rest time or else I will just go and burn myself out. So I start my day with a slow start where I don't do any work. I try really hard not to look at my phone. I don't open the email. And I find that that truly helps to regulate my nervous system at the start of the day. And then similarly at the end of the day, I take some time to put my phone away, stretch, and do things that help me get out of that work mode. And even if in the middle of the semester, the whole rest of the day is like jam-packed, those 2 little buffer periods at the beginning and end of the day help me to stay regulated and really truly helped me from reaching a complete burnout during a pretty hectic semester. But I know that some people might be on the opposite end of that spectrum. Maybe you are really good at resting and relaxing and it's hard for you to be productive, in which case you've got to approach your day in a different way. Maybe you need to plan that first hour of your day to get your hardest task of the day done so that it's off your plate, and then you can feel more relaxed and be less in that procrastinating energy. But at any rate, it's trial and error. You have to find what works best for you. But if you want to change something in your life, you have to be willing to try something different and try it long enough to see if you can get through the resistance and make it into a new habit for yourself. So that is definitely something you can try. Or if you're not a morning person, but you feel really good right after lunch or right before lunch or whatever it is, plan your hardest task of the day, the thing that you know you need to get done to feel like you accomplished something that day. Plan it in that time and hold yourself to that and see how that makes you feel at the end of the day. If that helps you keep your momentum or anything like that, if that makes sense. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about today is a little bit more singer specific. But I'm here in Mexico. We're staying in my partner's parents' little condo, which is a 2-bedroom, cute little condo. It's really nice, but I have to practice. I've got that program in Madrid coming up. I'm learning music for, which is some of that music is super hard. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, I'm doing some selections in concert in August, and I've got to practice. And I am usually very anxious about practicing in less than ideal circumstances. And actually, I've been really proud of myself because I came into this with a lot of strategies for how I was going to manage that anxiety. And I've actually found that I don't feel very anxious, and I have had no problem just full out practicing, which is really cool. But if you find yourself in a situation like this where you need to practice in a hotel room or warm up in a hotel room before an audition or anything that's not as comfortable, here are some strategies that you can use. Do lots of SOVTs. You can use a straw. You can use a styrofoam cup that you poke a hole out of the bottom and hold that over your mouth to sing through. It dampens it enough and gives you a little bit of back pressure to help you sing full out with your mouth open in a way that the straw or a hum or a lip trill doesn't. So that is especially good for warming up, doing lots of breathing exercises, and physical warm-up is also very important and can help you. But if you're not warming up for an audition or something, don't neglect also the value of memorization practice and drilling your memorization in as many different ways as possible. Make sure you have a really clear mental framework of the form of the text in which phrases link together, starting words of each phrase, ending words of each phrase, especially if they rhyme, drilling those. You can do lots of subtext building practice, that characterization, creating those mental connections between why am I saying this and what happens in between that makes me say the next phrase. That kind of practice is super valuable and helps really lock in that memorization and into a deeper level of your brain. You can do a lot of visualization practice and breath work. I also find that physicalizing the relaxation of my throat with my lifted soft palate and mouthing the words with the resonant shape that I want to make without actually singing is super valuable. Practicing speaking your word for word translation in rhythm is super helpful and helps also lock in that memorization and connection to what you're actually saying. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to help yourself be productive and to use that time efficiently, even if you can't full out sing comfortably. And you'll want to be very mindful of managing your emotional and physical state as you are practicing in this environment. Look at it as performance practice, not so much in the way that you're performing, because you may need to be doing technical work and things that aren't just performing, but practicing under pressure and managing your body under pressure, making sure that you're not squeezing or holding even when you feel uncomfortable is helpful. This kind of resilient mindset is very underrated. Practicing feeling nervous, feeling anxious, feeling uncomfortable, and finding a way to release your body to sing well is a crucial part of learning how to do the dang thing under pressure. So those are my hot tips for the day. I'm going to enjoy my vacation. I'll get a little bit of work done. I'm going to edit the podcast and schedule it to go out and enjoy my coffee on the balcony and play some more pickleball. And I hope that you are also enjoying your summer and finding time to rest, but also be productive and do the things that you want to do. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Passaggi Professor with Sarah Neely. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. This really helps the podcast reach more singers just like you. And if you're ready to learn the life skills that smooth the passaggi of your life, you can follow me on Instagram at Sarah Singer's Mindset. There's a link in my bio where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter and learn more about working with me. See you next time.